My name is Natashia Baker. This is my oral report as it concerns my research in mandatory recycling for English 112. My stance on this debate is that I do believe there should be mandatory recycling because in general, across the world, especially in the United States, we are only recycling about 34% of our garbage, whereas you have other places around the world like Switzerland, which is up to almost 60% recycling, and they do have mandatory recycling, and it's working for them. Obviously, their numbers are much higher than ours, and we see the negative effects all around us of what happens when we don't recycle. It hurts the animals, it hurts the environment, which in turn hurts us as well. So I believe that if you had mandatory recycling, especially in the United States, because, we've got some states that do, some states that don't, some that do still have mandatory recycling, or at least voluntary recycling, they still don't recycle that much, and the knowledge of how to recycle properly and the knowledge of the benefits of recycling is just not, there's just not a lot of it out there, not easily available where, it can help encourage people to recycle. And this isn't just, the people individually, but also it talks about, businesses as a whole. When we recycle and communities recycle, businesses recycle, we also have those businesses that purchase those recycled materials, and should they have incentives to use that recycled material, of course they're going to use it more. Then that helps keep this process of recycling going. But with mandatory recycling, it's beneficial for everyone. It's beneficial for the communities, it's beneficial for the animals, our environments, and the world as a whole. And as a whole, we've got this thing that has to do with zero waste, and it's basically getting what we put out, our waste, to be able to be reused 100%. That's the goal, is there to be zero waste. So not having these big landfills just sitting and collecting all this garbage that in turn is just rotting away. You've got organic matter and non-organic matter. You've got like metals and all these chemicals that just all go together and just go into our soils and then also into our water, and it's just got negative effects on everybody. So when you got mandatory recycling, you're creating a solution for those issues. And when you do the mandatory recycling, it's not necessarily going to be something that's just going to happen overnight. It's going to take incentives, encouragement. Mandatory recycling, some people are going to want to, rebel against it because they're looking at it as you forcing them to do something that they should have an option to do. But as it's clear to look back in history, waiting on people to decide to recycle, it's not really happening, or we wouldn't be where we are with the problem of the lack of recycling. And I believe if you took and made recycling mandatory, you're going to take our 34%, and it's going to go up noticeably. Even in the beginning, it's going to be noticeable, because you go around our coast, and you're going to see that most of the communities in the United States that are doing the recycling are the coastal communities. They have the most information, the technologies. When you recycle an item, it's being sent to a warehouse where they're going to sort it out. Well, some warehouses sort it out where they collect all the glass and paper and plastic all in one, and then a machine tumbles it around and sorts it. Well, it's a little bit messier, and it breaks the glass up, and it kind of causes contamination and everything. It's really not a nice process. Whereas you've got other recycling companies that causes the customer to pay a little bit more, but allows for the plastics and glass and paper to be sorted properly, and to have, it gets the most benefit out of reusing those materials. But back to the fact that we have coastal communities that do the majority of the recycling. With the closer into the middle of our country that you go, you're going to find that there's like zero recycling happening, and if there is, they may have some voluntary options for people to recycle, but they just don't because the knowledge isn't there, or the incentives even, and the companies that are, a part of the recycling, there's just not a lot out there. And so if we made mandatory recycling, it would open up so many opportunities for encouragement for businesses to recycle and encouragement for the people to recycle. And eventually it wouldn't have to be a mandatory anymore. It could go back to voluntary, but there would be so much knowledge out there and of the benefits for the people and the world as a whole. And so that's my stance on recycling being mandatory. The benefits far outweigh any negative that could be thought of mandatory recycling. I thank you for your time, and any questions, please just ask.